Hi, welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about IP network protocols. Now, IP network protocols, we're going to look at various IP network services that are need to exist or that we will be needed in the future in order to get our collaboration environment working. Now, this is really high-level discussions because each of these things can go into more depth. Like, for example, NTP server, DHCP, you can spend hours talking about that, but we're just going to talk about what their purposes are and how they can affect your network. The most important thing we're going to talk about is called the network time protocol, or NTP. The NTP is designed to synchronize your computer system clocks with an IP network. So you could literally get all the network devices synchronized with a particular clock, which will provide time to it. Now, NTP provides a reference clock for device time synchronization, usually from an external source, such as Google NTP server or military NTP servers around the globe. NTP is a mandatory and must be enabled in Cisco Unified Communication Manager during its installation. At least 3 NTP servers should be referenced in order for you to have a redundancy, one of which should be an external. Publisher is the only server to synchronize from an external master clock source, whereas subscriber will get its time from the publisher. Now, accurate time is required as the system time of Cisco Unified Communication Manager is relevant to the following. NTP will make sure that your IP phone displays date and time accurately. Call list on your IP phone shows that when the call was dialed, received, or missed. CDR or CMR, these are call reporting analysis, billing. They need to be accurately saved so that you know exactly when the customers was billed. Alarm, event, log files, trace files, these should be stored with the proper correct NTP timestamp. Because if a law enforcement officer comes in and say, hey, we need a data from these days because there was some investigation going on, so you want to be able to give them the appropriate data. Some of the Cisco Unified Communication Manager feature are date and time based, such as time of the day routing or certificate. They are heavily depending on your NTP server. The next protocol is called DHCP. DHCP is a protocol that allows IP endpoint to obtain their IP settings from a server. The most important things are IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, and in addition to that, you can assign DNS server, specific functions such as TFTP server that are used by Cisco IP phone can also be assigned automatically. Now, if the IP phone does not receive an IP address from a DHCP server, one of the following is likely cause of the problem. Either DHCP server is unavailable, cannot be reached, or server is not defined as scope for the subnet the phone is trying to come in from, all the address in the scope are currently being used, or the phone is not in the common subnet as a DHCP server. In that case, you will need to configure DHCP relay to enable the router to forward a broadcast. So those are some of the stuff that you need to understand. DNS. DNS is probably one of the most important thing as of going forward, especially with the Java, especially with WebEx Cloud. DNS is becoming a very, very important application. Now, DNS, basically, there are 2 ways to access a device, either by IP address or by host name. To map that host name to an IP address, you need a DNS server, which is basically simplified because it's a logical name, easier to manage rather than IP address. If IP address change, there is no need to modify the application settings because it's still pointing to the same name. All you have to do is go ahead and change the IP address in the DNS server. Now, in general, due to requirement of DNS by various other applications, it is recommended that you use DNS for call manager as well. Now, troubleshooting and configuring DNS is, of course, beyond the scope of this course. You should learn how to configure DNS server or troubleshoot DNS server because in your collaboration career, you're going to be using DNS a lot in terms of communications. So you can watch YouTube videos or you can watch a Google, Cisco website or Microsoft website. Make sure you understand how DNS works very well. Now, DNS is basically consists of various records, which are called resource records. Records can be comprised of data within the DNS zone. There are record called A record, SRV records, PTR records. These are the most important thing that you need to get yourself familiar with. TFTP, Trivial File Transfer Protocol. Now, this is a simple file transfer protocol that can be used by Cisco IP phone to download following file. It will use Cisco phone will use TFTP server to download the phone configuration file, which basically contain list of prioritized call manager server the phone will register to. It contains a firmware file. TFTP server does store the current version of the firmware needed for the phone model to work. If this version is checked, then the phone boots and the correct version is downloaded from the TFTP, if the phone does not already have the correct version. TFTP server will also be used by the phone to download the certificate trust list or CTL or identity trust list called ITL. When CTL and ITL file is present, IP phone will request a signed TFTP configuration file from the TFTP server. This file allows the phone to verify the configuration file that came from a trusted source. Network and user localization. Now, this is specific to country-specific tone. So if you have a certain country and they require a certain specific tone, you would need to specify the network and user localization file, which will be available on the TFTP server. Ringer file, different ringtone can be downloaded from the TFTP server to the phone as well. Soft key files. This file contains a soft key template that are used by the phone, and these will be downloaded from the TFTP into the phone. Dial plan file for SIP phone, which will use by SIP dial rules. So if the phone does not receive its configuration file from the TFTP server, following could be the reason. Either DHCP scope does not have a TFTP server assigned automatically, which is called option 150, or option 150 in the DHCP scope point to wrong IP address, or simply TFTP server does on the specific address does not either exist or hanged, or the file may not be available. So you may want to look at any of those reasons for troubleshooting the TFTP. Cisco Discovery Protocol or CDP. Cisco IP phone generates CDP protocol message like almost all other Cisco network products. IP phone can also listen to discovery protocol message sent out by the catalyst switches. In this way, the catalyst switch can indirectly configure the LAN configuration of the phone, including the voice VLAN and class of service settings. Third-party endpoints do not support Cisco Discovery Protocol. To allow devices discover using third-party, you need to use something called LLDP or LLDP for MED. It's an extension of LLDP. LLDP-MED define how a switch port transition from LLDP to LLDP-MED if it detects such capable endpoint. Now, support for both LLDP and LLDP-MED on IP phone and LAN switch will depend on the firmware of the phone. So that is something that you want to look at. LDAP, Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, which is a service that stores user information in a specialized database. The database is optimized for a higher number of read, search, and occasionally write updates. Directory typically store data, but do not change that often, such as employee information, their user privileges on the corporate network. LDAP server provides application with a standard method for accessing and potentially modifying information that are stored in the directory. This capability enables the company to centralize all the user information in a single repository server, such as Microsoft Active Directory. This ability to result in remarkable reduction in maintenance costs because you don't have to create user account in too many places or remove it from too many places. Simply create the user account in LDAP or remove it from the LDAP, and that's done. An example of LDAP servers are Microsoft Active Directory, Open LDAP, Microsoft LDAP application mode, Netscape, Sun1, and many other applications such as that are available in the market. SNMP, which could be used for network monitoring. So you guys already know what SNMP is, or you should know what SNMP is. SNMP is a protocol that is used by network management server or system to monitor the health and performance of your call manager server or CUCM servers. Some SNMP allows you to even manage the platform, do some configurations as well. You can use application like Cisco Prime LAN management solution, HP OpenView, third-party application that support SNMP interface to manage and administer your platform. So those are some of the network protocol that you need to be familiar with because you may need it for day-to-day purposes, or you may need to use SNMP, for example, for monitoring and troubleshooting purposes. So make sure you're familiar with it, have a good understanding about what they are and how to configure them in Call Manager. There are many different help documentations available for you to achieve that. So thank you for watching this video. I will see you in